Shadows at Union Station, a noir mystery thriller in Chicago. The snow was falling thick and steady, turning the streets of Chicago into a white blur. Out by the river, the city lights looked like bruised stars smothered under fog, and the howl of a distant train cut through the night like a wounded animal. Jack Marlowe pulled his coat tighter around his shoulders, lit another cigarette, and said the kind of thing a man only says when he's halfway tired of life. Nothing good ever comes out of a train station at midnight. Claire shot him a look over her scarf, her eyes glinting sharp in the weak street lamp glow. That's because you're always looking for trouble. Jack, me? I think stations are about beginnings. Or endings, he muttered, flicking ash into the snow. They crossed the empty lot toward Union Station. A squat, soot-stained brick building squatting like a relic in the middle of nowhere. It wasn't the Grand Union Station of the downtown loop, the one with cathedral arches and marble floors. This was its forgotten cousin. Tucked in the industrial shadows of the West Side. A small station, for small departures, and, Jack thought grimly, even smaller hopes. Inside, the old place smelled of coal dust, damp wood, and the faint tang of machine oil. The long benches were empty except for a vagrant snoring under yesterday's newspaper. Up near the ticket window hung a black draped banner, in memory of Edward Halloway, 1887 to 1946. Jack took off his hat, brushed the snow from the brim, and looked at Claire. So here we are, a funeral in a train station. I've seen stranger things, but not many. Claire unwound her scarf, studying the banner. The Halloways always did things differently. Richard wanted the service here because this is where his father built his fortune. Railroads, warehouses, immigrant labor contracts. This place made the family rich. And now it's where the family buries its secrets. Jack said, eyeing the banner. She smiled faintly. You're already suspicious. And we haven't even met the widow. Blank. Underscore, blank. They weren't there by chance. Richard Halloway had called them in, a personal request to Jack Marlowe. Ex-cop turned private investigator. Edward Halloway, Richard's younger brother, had been found dead 2 nights ago in his private railcar. Official word said heart failure. Richard wasn't so sure. The service was scheduled for the morning, but mourners had already gathered inside the station. Jack spotted them right away. Richard Halloway, tall, silver-haired, carrying himself like a man who expected the world to bow. He looked older than his 50 years, and the heavy black coat hung off him like a judge's robe. Eleanor Halloway, his wife, pale and poised, a string of pearls tied around her throat. Her eyes darted restlessly, as if she feared being caught in a photograph. Dr. Samuel Crane, a bespectacled man clutching a leather satchel, his scholarly air marred by nervous twitches. Harold Green, the family's lawyer, stocky and smooth-faced, his dark overcoat pressed to perfection. He kept close to Richard like a shadow. Lucy Moran, secretary to the late Edward, standing a little apart, her youth dulled by grief or maybe guilt. And 2 young men, cousins, both Halloways, Arthur, broad-shouldered and restless, and David, thin, soft-spoken, the kind of man who looked like he'd apologize for breathing too loud. Jack's detective instincts filed them all away, like mugshots pinned on the wall of his mind. Blank. Underscore, blank. They'd barely stepped forward when Claire tugged his sleeve. Jack, look, near the side door, where melted snow turned the tile slick. A trail of footprints led away, oddly sharp, as though pressed deep into the slush and frozen again. They ended at a locked door marked baggage storage, keep out. Jack knelt, touched one. The edges were crisp, not softened by thaw or more snow. Someone had walked this way recently. Funny place for a midnight stroll, he said. Claire bent beside him. Her gloved hand brushed against something metallic wedged in the floorboard crack. She fished it out, a small bronze key, no larger than a thumb, its teeth crooked and worn smooth by years. Jack pocketed it. Looks like we found our welcome gift. Blank. Underscore, blank. The gathering stirred when Richard Halloway noticed them. Marlowe, he said, his deep voice carrying authority even here. And Mrs. Marlowe, thank you for coming. Jack tipped his hat. You wanted us here, Mr. Halloway. That tells me you don't trust the coroner's verdict. Richard's eyes narrowed. My brother was a healthy man. Too healthy to die in his sleep. Edward was working on something. Research. Family history. He said, but lately he'd grown agitated. Said he'd found proof of an old fraud. Something that could ruin us all if it came out. Then, suddenly, he's dead. You understand my concern. Jack nodded slowly. You think someone shut him up? Richard's jaw tightened. I think you'd be wise not to trust appearances. Behind him, Eleanor spoke for the first time. Her voice was soft, with a trace of steel. Richard, must we drag outsiders into this? Edward's death was a tragedy. Yes, but, Richard silenced her with a look. Enough, Eleanor. Marlowe will look into it. Jack studied the widow. There was fear in her eyes. Yes, but also something else. Relief. Maybe. He filed it away. Blank. Blank. The station clock told midnight. A low whistle moaned from the tracks outside. And for a moment, everyone seemed frozen in their own secrets. Jack was about to speak when Claire nudged him again. Her gaze was fixed on the far corner of the hall, where a bundle lay half hidden under a bench. Jack crossed quickly, flipped it open. A pair of black gloves. Expensive leather, soaked from snow, but oddly out of place. On the inside cuff was stitched the initials HG. Harold Green cleared his throat. I must have dropped those earlier. He stepped forward too quickly. Snatched them from Jack's hand. Thank you. Jack looked at him evenly. Sure, easy thing to misplace, I guess. But Green's grip was too tight. His eyes too defensive. Another note for Jack's mental file. Blank. Blank. The night stretched along. Richard insisted on showing Jack and Claire to a small office once used for railway dispatch, where Edward had spent his last days. The room was lined with ledgers, dusty maps, and filing cabinets. The desk bore marks of recent activity, papers shuffled, drawers unlocked, as if someone had rifled through them in a hurry. Jack slid open one drawer, found nothing but pens and invoices. Claire, with her instinct for the overlooked, pulled 2 books from the shelf. Between them was a folded sheet of cream-colored stationery. She read aloud. Not everything lies quiet beneath the frost. The handwriting was Edward's, jagged and urgent. Jack took it from her. Sounds like a warning. Before he could tuck it away, the door creaked open. Lucy Moran stood there, clutching her handbag. I shouldn't be here, she said quickly. But I have to tell you, Mr. Edward wasn't just looking into genealogy. He said he'd uncovered irregularities in the immigration records. Documents from the 1890s. He believed someone in the family wasn't who they claimed to be. He was frightened. Mr. Marlowe. Frightened enough too. Her words cut off as a shadow filled the doorway. Harold Green. Miss Moran, he said smoothly. Your place is not here. Come along. His hand closed around her arm. Firm and controlling. She flinched but obeyed, casting one last, desperate glance back at Jack and Claire. Blank. After they left, Claire said quietly, Jack, she's scared, terrified. Yeah, Jack said, lighting another cigarette, and Green doesn't like us hearing what she has to say. Which makes me like him even less. He exhaled smoke toward the cracked ceiling, listening to the snowstorm batter the station windows. A funeral in a train station. A dead man who whispered of fraud. A key, a note, a pair of gloves, and a lawyer too eager to cover his tracks. Jack had seen enough to know one thing. This wasn't just a family tragedy. It was a loaded gun waiting to go off. Blank. The storm hadn't let up by dawn. Snow blew in sheets across the tracks, burying switches, freezing couplers solid. Inside Union Station, the cold crept through every seam and draft, biting even with the old pot-bellied stove roaring. Jack Marlowe had spent the night in a wooden chair, his coat for a blanket, cigarette smoke curling around his head like the ghost of bad dreams. Claire stirred beside him, tucking her scarf tighter. You didn't sleep. Didn't feel like it, Jack muttered. Too many shadows moving around this place. At sunrise, mourners began to gather for the service. The platform filled with black coats, muffled voices, and the sound of boots crunching slush. The coffin had been placed on a draped bier in the center of the hall. Edward Halloway's name stenciled in neat brass letters on the plaque. Jack kept his distance, watching faces. Funerals always peeled people down to the bone. Some wore grief honestly. Others wore it like a borrowed suit. Richard Halloway gave a stiff welcome. We honor my brother today. His passing was unexpected, but his legacy endures. He believed in this station. In the history of our family. In the promise of railroads that built Chicago. It was the kind of speech that left out everything that mattered. Claire whispered. Notice how he doesn't mention what Edward was researching. Jack smirked. Family pride doesn't leave room for skeletons. The minister, Reverend Collins, took over with a solemn prayer. While heads bowed, Jack's eyes roamed. He saw Lucy Moran dabbing her eyes, her shoulders trembling. Arthur and David Holloway stood apart, whispering in low, sharp tones, and Harold Green kept glancing toward the baggage door, as if afraid of what lay behind it. Blank. Blank. The prayer ended, people shuffled, and then, in the stillness, something broke it, a clatter of glass. Everyone turned. At the back of the hall, Dr. Samuel Crane had dropped his satchel. Papers scattered, a small glass vial rolling across the floor until it hit the wall. Claire's hand closed on Jack's arm. Jack, that vial. He was already moving. Dr. Crane bent too quickly, snatched it up, shoved it into his coat pocket. His face was pale, sweat trickling despite the cold. Forgive me, he stammered. I'm clumsy. Jack crouched where the vial had been. A faint trace of powder dusted the tile. White, crystalline. He rubbed it between his fingers. Salt? No. Finer. Medicinal. Maybe. The Reverend cleared his throat and hurried the ceremony along. But the mood had shifted. Whispers spread like fire in dry grass. Blank. After the service, Richard invited the closest circle into the baggage annex. A cavernous room that smelled of oil, dust, and frozen iron. The coffin would be transferred later to the family mausoleum. But Richard insisted they pay respects here. Jack noted fresh footprints in the snow leading toward the locked storeroom door, just as he had the night before. This time there were more, several sets, overlapping, a confusion of movement. Claire knelt, her gloved hand brushing over them. Different sizes. At least 3 people came through here. Jack tried the door, still locked. He touched the pocket where the bronze key lay heavy. Not yet, he told himself, not with half the family watching. Inside the annex, tension thickened. Richard tried to maintain control, but questions buzzed. Arthur demanded to know about Edward's research. David muttered something about forged wills. Eleanor clutched her pearls tighter, her lips bloodless. Lucy looked ready to faint. It was Dr. Crane who broke. He leaned against a crate, trembling. Edward wasn't mad. He whispered hoarsely. He was right. The records don't match. The Holloway line, there was an imposter. More than a century ago. If the truth came out. Enough. Richard roared. His fist slammed against the crate. This is not the time. Nor the place. But the words were out now. Hanging in the cold air like smoke. Blank. Later, Jack found himself outside on the platform. Snow crunching beneath his shoes. He needed air. Needed to think. Claire joined him. Cheeks flushed from the cold. Jack, Edward's warning makes sense now. Not everything lies quiet beneath the frost. He meant the family's past. Someone went to great lengths to bury it. Jack blew smoke into the wind, and killed to keep it buried. She touched his arm. What about that vial Crane dropped? Did you see how fast Green looked at it? I saw, Jack said. Digitalis. Maybe. Heart medicine. Or poison. Depends on the dose. Claire shivered. If Edward had been given too much, then it wasn't heart failure. It was murder. That evening, as the mourners drifted away and only the inner circle remained, Jack made his move. He waited until the platform was clear, then slid the bronze key into the storeroom lock. It turned with a reluctant click. Inside, the air was colder, heavy with dust. Stacks of old trunks lined the walls. Labels faded. A single overhead bulb swung weakly, throwing shadows that looked alive. Claire followed, her breath visible in the chill. What exactly are we looking for? Whatever Edward found, Jack said. They combed through crates, trunks, filing cabinets. Most held nothing but moth-eaten clothes. Invoices, useless junk. Then Claire's sharp eyes caught it. A false panel in the back wall. Behind it, a narrow passage led to a hidden room. A chamber lined with shelves of ledgers, maps, immigration rosters. Dust lay thick, but recently disturbed. Papers scattered, as if searched in a hurry. Jack picked up one torn sheet, a naturalization record from 1893. The name Holloway had been written, then scratched out. replaced by another in different ink. Forgery. Jack muttered. Edward was right. On the floor lay something darker, a scrap of black wool fabric. Snagged on a nail. Jack pocketed it. Blank. Underscore. Blank. They weren't alone. A floorboard creaked. Claire stiffened. Jack killed the light, motioned her to hide behind a trunk. Footsteps entered the hidden chamber. A silhouette moved in the dim glow from the hallway. Broad shoulders, a gloved hand rifling through the ledgers. The man cursed softly, pulled something from his pocket. A lighter's flame flared. For a moment, Jack saw his face. Harold Green. Green flipped through documents, stuffed several into his coat, then turned and left, muttering to himself. When the footsteps faded, Jack exhaled. Our lawyer's been busy. Claire's voice was a whisper. Jack, if he took papers proving fraud, then he's got motive written all over him. Blank. Underscore. Blank. They returned to the waiting hall, only to find commotion. Eleanor Holloway stood near the coffin, her face drained of color. Arthur and David were arguing, voices raised, and on the floor, near the casket stand, was a thin line of white powder, trailing as if spilled from someone's pocket. Jack knelt, touched it, the same powder as before. Reverend Collins crossed himself. This is sacrilege. But Jack wasn't thinking of blasphemy. He was thinking of poison, of dosage, of how easy it would be to slip something into Edward's drink, into his medicine, into anything. And he was thinking of Harold Green's too smooth denial. His gloves, his midnight search. Blank. Underscore. Blank. That night, Jack and Claire retired to the small office again. The snow rattled the window panes, wind howling like a train that never arrived. Claire spread out the documents they'd salvaged. Jack, look, these names don't line up. The Holloway's ancestor who supposedly came from Boston. According to this, he died in a cholera outbreak before ever reaching Chicago. Jack rubbed his jaw. So someone else took his place. Built the family fortune on a lie. Claire's eyes shone. Edward must have discovered it. He threatened to expose the truth. And someone killed him to stop it. Jack lit another cigarette, his hands steady though his mind was racing. We've got pieces. We need proof. And I think Green's got it tucked in his coat right now. Claire leaned back, her voice low. Jack, do you ever feel like this whole station is watching us? Like the walls remember everything? He didn't answer, but he felt it too. The sense of ghosts in every echo. Secrets waiting in the shadows. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Near midnight, a scream cut through the storm. Jack and Claire bolted from the office, racing down the hall. The sound had come from the baggage annex. They burst through the door. There, on the snowy floor just inside, lay Dr. Samuel Crane, unconscious, his glasses shattered beside him. His hand was outstretched toward the mausoleum crates, as if pointing, and near him, half hidden in the snow, gleamed another small glass vial. Claire gasped. Jack, he's been poisoned. Jack knelt, checked the man's pulse. Weak, but there, still alive. But somebody wanted him quiet. He looked at the door to the hidden chamber, now ajar. A faint dusting of mortar crumbled around the edges. Something inside had been moved. And Jack Marlowe knew the case had just gone from shadows to fire. Dr. Crane's body was carried into the station office, laid on a narrow cot beneath a sputtering lamp. His breathing was shallow, lips tinged blue. Claire worked feverishly with warm cloths and whiskey, coaxing him to stir. Jack stood at the window, cigarette glowing red, eyes fixed on the swirling storm outside. His instincts told him this was no accident. Someone had tried to silence Crane, and they'd almost succeeded. Claire looked up. Jack, we can't keep him here. He needs a hospital. Jack shook his head. Storms blocked every road, no trains running either. Whoever did this knew we were trapped. As if to prove him right, the wind howled against the glass like a mocking laugh. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Hours later, Crane's eyelids fluttered. His voice was weak, but urgent. The records. Holloway. Fraud. His hand trembled as he tried to reach for his coat. Jack slipped it closer, rifled through the inside pocket. Nothing. The papers Green had stolen earlier were gone. Crane gasped. Not accident. Edward warned me. Said, poison. His words trailed into a fit of coughing. Jack gripped his shoulder. Who? Doc? Who gave him the poison? Crane's eyes widened, darting toward the door. Lawyer? His head fell back. Unconscious again. Jack and Claire exchanged a glance. Harold Green, Claire whispered. Jack stubbed out his cigarette. Yeah, our friendly neighborhood vulture. Blank. Underscore, blank. By morning, the snow had eased, leaving a crust of ice that glistened like broken glass. Richard Halloway summoned the family to the annex again, insisting on discussing business matters. Jack and Claire slipped in at the back. Silent observers. Green stood at Richard's side, his black coat immaculate, gloves tucked neatly in his pocket. His calmness set Jack's teeth on edge. Richard cleared his throat. We must decide the disposition of Edward's estate. His research was misguided, dangerous even, for the good of the family. We will suppress it. Agreed? Arthur exploded. Suppress it? You mean bury it, just like you buried Edward? Eleanor gasped. David muttered something ugly. Lucy began sobbing into her handkerchief. Green raised his hand smoothly. Gentlemen, emotions will not serve us here. The truth is simple. Edward was ill. Confused. His so-called discovery means nothing. The Halloway name is secure. Jack stepped forward. Funny. Counselor. Last night, Dr. Crane nearly died. Poisoned. Same way Edward went, if you ask me. And you're the one who just happened to be sneaking into the records room. A murmur swept the family. Richard stiffened. Marlowe, you're out of line. Am I? Jack's eyes bored into green. Maybe you'd like to explain why your coat was bulging with documents last night. Or why Crane managed to croak out the word lawyer before he collapsed. Green's composure cracked for the first time. A flicker of panic in his eyes. But he recovered quickly, smoothing his lapel. Baseless accusations. The detective indulges in melodrama. Jack smiled without humor. Melodrama usually comes with a body count. Yours is climbing. Blank. Underscore, blank. That night, Jack couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on him. Every creak of the wooden beams sounded like footsteps. Every draft whispered like a voice. He walked the length of the deserted platform, the lamps throwing long shadows across the snow. Claire joined him, hugging her coat close. Jack, if Green forged the records, if he poisoned Edward, then why? He's not family. He doesn't have to be. Jack said. He's the gatekeeper. With those documents, he controls the Halloways. Blackmail, money, power, all wrapped up in neat little legal language. Claire frowned. But Edward's discovery wasn't just embarrassing, it was explosive. If the Halloways aren't who they claim to be, their entire fortune collapses. Jack blew smoke into the freezing night. Exactly. Which means Green's sitting on the biggest leverage of his life. And he's not letting go without a fight. Blank. Underscore, blank. Near midnight, Jack heard a faint scraping sound outside the office. He drew his pistol, motioned for Claire to stay put, and stepped into the corridor. A figure was moving toward the annex. Hunched, furtive, Jack followed silently, boots crunching in the snow. The annex door creaked open. The figure slipped inside. Jack swung it wide, gun leveled. Hold it right there. The figure froze, then turned slowly. It wasn't Green. It was Lucy Moran, the secretary. Her face was pale, eyes wide. Mr. Marlowe, I didn't mean. What are you doing here at this hour? Jack asked. She twisted her hands. I had to see. Edward left me a note. Said if anything happened to him, I'd find the truth here. She pulled a crumpled envelope from her coat. Inside was a scrap of paper in Edward's hand. Trust no one. Records in the hidden room. Green will destroy them. Jack cursed under his breath. The girl was telling the truth. But before he could speak again, another sound split the air. Boots pounding behind them. The annex door slammed shut. Jack spun. Too late. Smoke filled the room, thick, acrid, burning his lungs. Tear gas. Lucy screamed. Jack shoved her down behind a trunk, pulled his coat over her face. He groped blindly for Claire's hand, dragged her close. Through the haze, a shadow loomed, broad, dark, gun glinting. Harold Green. Blank. Underscore, blank. When the smoke cleared minutes later, the annex was chaos. Trunks overturned, papers scattered, Lucy coughing violently in Claire's arms. But Green was gone. So were several more ledgers from the hidden chamber. Jack slammed his fist against the wall. He's cleaning house. By the time the storm clears, he'll have every piece of evidence in his pocket. Claire's voice was muffled through her scarf. Jack, what if he already destroyed the proof? Jack lit another cigarette with shaking hands. Then we find what he missed. And we make damn sure Green doesn't walk out of this station alive with the truth buried. Blank. Underscore. Blank. The following afternoon, a telegram finally crackled through the frozen wire. The snowplows were clearing tracks. By tomorrow, trains would be running again. Jack knew that meant one thing. Time was running out. He gathered the family in the great hall. Claire at his side, Crane barely conscious on a cot nearby. The coffin still rested on its bier, as if Edward himself were waiting for justice. Jack's voice carried through the drafty chamber. One of you killed Edward Halloway. Not by accident, not by heart failure, poison, and the man who tried to finish the job with Crane is standing right here. Eyes darted, tension crackled like static. Jack pointed. Harold Green, counselor, caretaker of the family's dirty laundry. Only he had access to the medicine. Only he was caught sneaking into the records room. And only he had the motive to control the Halloway fortune with forged documents. Green sneered. Preposterous. You have no proof. Jack's hand went into his pocket. He pulled out the scrap of black wool fabric, snagged in the hidden chamber. He held it up. Proof enough. This came from your coat. The same coat you wore last night when you raided the files. For the first time, Green's mask slipped completely. His face contorted, rage boiling over. He reached into his coat. But Jack was faster. The revolver barked once, echoing like thunder across the hall. Green's gun clattered to the floor. He staggered, clutching his arm, eyes wild. You don't know what you're doing. Green spat. You think the Halloways are your concern? They're built on lies. Without me, they're nothing. Nothing. Jack advanced, steel in his voice. Better nothing than a family bought with poison and blood. Blank. Underscore. Blank. The station was silent but for Green's ragged breathing. Richard Halloway stepped forward, face ashen. Is it true? Edward's research, was it real? Jack dropped the ledgers on the coffin lid. Read them yourself. Your dynasty's a fraud. And Green was ready to sell you out piece by piece. Eleanor collapsed into a chair. David swore under his breath. Arthur laughed bitterly, shaking his head. Claire's voice was soft, but firm. The truth is ugly, but it's better than a lie. Edward tried to show you. You ignored him, and he died for it. Richard bowed his head. Then, we must face it. Blank. Underscore. Blank. That night, Green was locked in a storeroom under guard, awaiting the sheriff once the trains cleared. The family dispersed, shattered but breathing, their illusions stripped bare. Jack and Claire stood on the empty platform, watching the snow glitter under the lamplight. Claire shivered. Do you think they'll survive this? The Halloways, I mean? Jack lit his last cigarette, the flame flickering in the wind. Survival's funny. Sometimes truth kills a man quicker than a bullet. But at least now, they've got a chance to live honest. Claire smiled faintly. And us? Jack exhaled smoke into the cold night. We'll catch the next train. Chicago's full of shadows. Somebody's got to keep chasing them. The whistle of a distant plow train carried across the frozen tracks. Long and mournful, like a requiem for Edward Halloway. And Jack Marlowe knew this case was closed, but the city had 1,000 more waiting. The storm broke with the dawn, leaving Union Station encased in brittle ice. The city outside was waking. Plows clearing streets, telegraph lines sparking back to life. By evening, the first train would push through. Jack Marlowe stood on the platform, collar turned up, cigarette glowing against the frost. He should have felt relief, the nightmare nearly over. Green locked away, the Halloways stripped of their lies. But a weight pressed in his gut. Cases never ended neat. There was always one last card face down on the table. Claire joined him, scarf wrapped tight. You're thinking too hard, she said. Jack didn't look at her. That's the trouble with snow. Covers up the footprints, makes you think it's clean. But underneath, the ground's still rotten. Claire studied him, then the station's dark windows. You don't think Green's finished? Jack flicked ash into the snow. No, men like him don't quit while they're breathing. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Inside, the family was fraying. Richard sat hunched on a bench, staring at nothing. Eleanor clutched her pearls so hard the string bit into her skin. Arthur paced like a caged panther, muttering curses. David looked ready to dissolve into the floor. Lucy sat with Dr. Crane, who dozed fitfully, fever-breaking. She smoothed his brow with surprising tenderness. When Jack stepped in, Arthur rounded on him. Well, The sheriff coming? Jack shook his head. Not till the tracks are clear. Tomorrow at the earliest. Arthur swore. So we're stuck here another night, with that snake under the same roof. Richard raised a weary hand. We'll manage. Green can't hurt us anymore. Jack said nothing. His eyes slid toward the locked storeroom. Blank. Blank. Evening fell fast. Lamps flickered on. Shadows stretching across the hall. Jack prowled the station like a wolf. Every sense sharp. Something itched at the back of his skull. At 9, Claire found him in the annex, studying the ledgers Edward had left behind. You're brooding again, she teased gently. Jack tapped the brittle paper. This fraud Edward uncovered, it's not just family scandal. It's bigger. Land deals, falsified titles, contracts stretching back half a century. Green wasn't just protecting the Halloways. He was protecting himself. If this comes out, every deal he's touched crumbles. Men like him don't go quietly. Claire sat beside him, resting her head on his shoulder. Then we keep watch, together. For a moment, the storm seemed far away. Blank. The crash came at midnight. Shouts. A splintering of wood. Jack and Claire bolted from the annex. Guns drawn. The storeroom door hung broken. Padlock twisted off. Inside, empty. Damn it, Jack hissed. He's loose. Arthur came charging down the hall, brandishing a length of pipe. What happened? Green's gone, Jack snapped. David appeared pale and trembling. Gone? But how? No time for questions. A gunshot cracked from the upper level, echoing like thunder. Screams followed. Blank. They stormed upstairs to the observation gallery. Eleanor stood frozen, hands over her mouth. At her feet, a bullet lodged deep in the wood. Green was there, gun smoking, coat torn, eyes blazing with desperation. He held Lucy Moran by the wrist, dragging her like a shield. Nobody move. Green's voice was raw, broken by rage. One step closer. She dies. Lucy whimpered, but didn't struggle. Jack raised his pistol. Let her go. Green, it's over. Over? Green laughed bitterly. You think locking me in a broom closet ends this? I've got nothing left. Marlowe, nothing but the truth, and if I go down, I'll take every Halloway with me. Richard barked. You fool, you'll hang for Edward's death. Green's grip tightened on Lucy. Better the noose than the gutter. At least the world will know what you really are. Blank. Jack kept his voice low. Steady. Killing her won't prove anything. You want leverage? I'll give you some. You walk out of here alive. You'll get your day in court. Maybe you spin the story. Make yourself a martyr. But if you pull that trigger, all you'll be is a murderer with no one left to listen. Green's eyes darted, doubt flickering. Lucy seized the moment. She stomped hard on his foot, twisting free with a cry. Jack fired. The shot hit Green's shoulder, spinning him against the railing. His gun clattered away, sliding across the floor. For a heartbeat, silence. Then Green lunged, not for Lucy, not for escape, but for the ledgers on the table beside him. Jack shouted, but too late. Green clutched the papers to his chest, eyes wild. They'll never see daylight. He hurled himself against the window. Glass shattered, snow whipping in. Green vanished into the night, the ledgers with him. Blank. The gallery erupted in chaos. Arthur swore. David sobbed. Eleanor fainted dead away. Claire rushed to Lucy's side, holding her tight. Jack stood at the broken window, peering into the white void below. The ground was 3 stories down, jagged with ice and steel beams. No sign of Green, only blood on the snow. Jack, Claire whispered. Is he? Jack holstered his gun, jaw tight. Men like Green don't die easy. If the fall didn't kill him, the cold will. But in his gut, Jack wasn't sure. Blank. Morning came gray and hollow. Workers from the city arrived, shoveling snow from the tracks. The first whistle echoed through the air, long and lonely. The Halloways prepared to leave, their dynasty in tatters. Richard stood stiff, his pride broken but his voice steady. Marlowe, he said, I owe you thanks, and perhaps an apology. Edward was right. We built our name on lies. It may all come crashing down now, but at least the truth is ours again. Jack nodded, saying nothing. Lucy approached shyly. Thank you, Mr. Marlowe, for believing me, for saving me. Claire squeezed her hand. Take care of yourself, Lucy. You got more courage than all of them combined. Lucy managed a small, tremulous smile. Blank. Underscore, blank. The train screeched into the station. Steam billowing across the platform. Families hurried aboard, voices hushed, eyes downcast. Jack and Claire lingered, watching. Claire broke the silence. Do you think Green's really gone? Jack lit his last cigarette. Flame trembling in the wind. He exhaled smoke into the icy air. Maybe, maybe not, but Chicago's got plenty more like him. Men who hide behind money and law. Smiling while they bleed you dry. Claire slipped her arm through his. And you'll keep chasing them. Jack gave her a weary smile. Somebody's got to. The whistle blew again. They boarded. The train shuddered. And Union Station receded into the storm. Its secrets buried in snow. Its shadows lingering long after the smoke cleared. The train thundered east through the frozen yards. Its wheels screaming like some tortured animal. Inside the Pullman car, Jack Marlowe sat with his shoulders hunched and his hat tipped low. Staring at nothing, the snow outside blurred the world to white streaks. Claire sat across from him, knitting her brows instead of yarn. "You're quiet," she said. Jack muttered, "I keep hearing glass break. Keep seeing Green go through that window." Claire folded her arms. "You shot him. He took a fall no man could walk away from." Jack lit a cigarette, inhaled deep. "That's just it. A man like Green? He doesn't quit. And until I see his body on a slab, I don't buy it." Claire didn't argue. She just reached over and stole his cigarette, taking a drag like it belonged to her. Blank. Underscore, blank. They reached the city by noon. Chicago was thawing under a weak sun. Streets slick with meltwater. Alleys filled with dirty slush. The air smelled of coal smoke and wet iron. Back at Jack's office, a cramped suite above a diner on Canal Street, they found an envelope slid under the door. No stamp, no seal, just his name scrawled in heavy black ink. Jack slid it open with his penknife. Inside was a single sheet of paper. The words clipped from newspapers and pasted like a ransom note. "The frost has not buried everything." Beneath it, a small scrap of cloth. Black wool, frayed at the edge. Claire stared. "He's alive." Jack's jaw tightened. "And he wants us to know it." Blank. Underscore, blank. By nightfall, word spread. Harold Green hadn't been found dead in the rail yard. Instead, whispers said he'd been seen limping through the stockyards. Coat torn, shoulder bleeding. Some swore he vanished into a warehouse on Halsted where old railroad records were kept. Others claimed he was hiding with the remnants of the Holloway Syndicate. Men who owed him favors. Jack didn't trust gossip, but his gut told him one thing. Green was hunting for the ledgers Edward had uncovered. The same ledgers Green had clutched when he leapt from the gallery. If Green still had them, he had leverage, and leverage was more dangerous than a loaded gun. Blank. Underscore, blank. 2 nights later, Jack got his confirmation. A man named O'Malley, a railroad clerk with a taste for whiskey, staggered into Jack's office. He dropped a crumpled flyer on the desk. Auction, rare documents, private bidding only. Jack smoothed it out. The auction was scheduled for Friday in a warehouse by the river. Word is, O'Malley slurred, a fella matching Green's description set it up. Says he's got papers that'll change the history of the Halloways, and maybe half this city. He's calling it a one-night sale to the highest bidder. Jack cursed under his breath. Green wasn't just trying to cover his tracks, he was going to sell the truth to the highest bidder. Whoever wanted it weaponized. Claire's voice was sharp. If the wrong people buy those documents, they won't just bury Edward's name. They'll bury anyone who tries to speak of it again. Jack ground out his cigarette. Then we'd better crash ourselves an auction. Blank. Underscore, blank. The warehouse sat squat and cold on the riverfront. Its windows boarded, its bricks scarred by decades of soot. Jack and Claire arrived early, hiding in the shadows across the street. Cars rolled up one by one, Packards, Buicks, polished Cadillacs. Men in heavy coats stepped out, their hats low, their eyes sharp. Jack recognized some. Judge Fletcher, who'd buried more scandals than he'd ever presided over trials. Vince Caruso, mob lieutenant with blood under every fingernail. Alderman McCready, a politician who smiled like a shark. Claire muttered, "Quite the guest list." Jack's jaw clenched. Every crook in Chicago who wants history rewritten for their own pockets. They waited until the last car pulled in. then slipped through a side door left ajar. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Inside, the warehouse smelled of damp wood and stale cigars. Gas lamps lit the main floor, where a long table had been set. At its head, bandaged shoulder, coat patched, stood Harold Green, alive, smiling. "My friends," Green said, his voice carrying like a preacher's. "Tonight you have a chance to own not just paper, but power. Inside these ledgers are truths that could topple families, destroy fortunes, rewrite the very bones of this city. What I offer is more than ink, it's control." He held up a ledger. Its pages yellowed, edges cracked. Even from across the room, Jack recognized Edward's meticulous handwriting. Bidders leaned forward, hungry. The air buzzed with greed. Claire whispered, "We need a plan." Jack pulled his revolver. "Yeah, don't get shot. Blank. Underscore. Blank." They moved along the shadows, weaving behind crates. Jack counted exits, measured distances. He'd been in too many rooms like this. Rooms where men pretended they were civilized while sharpening knives under the table. Suddenly, a voice rang out, "Marlowe." Green's eyes cut through the crowd, finding him in the shadows. A grin spread across his face. "I was hoping you'd come." The crowd turned, murmurs rising. Jack stepped into the light, gun steady. Claire followed, chin high, unarmed but fearless. "Evening, Green," Jack said. "You look like hell. Alive, though." Green shot back, "Which is more than I can say for Edward." The room tensed. Green thrived on it. He spread his arms, ledger in one hand, bandaged shoulder stiff. "Gentlemen, here's your entertainment for the night. The detective who thinks he can stop the inevitable." Jack's gun never wavered. "That book doesn't belong to you. Doesn't belong to anyone," Green said. "It's proof that the Halloways built their empire on lies. And if these fine men want to pay me to decide which lies get told and which get buried, well, that's just business." Blank. Underscore. Blank. The auction dissolved into shouting. Numbers flew, 10,000, 20, 30. Caruso slammed a fist on the table. Fletcher raised his cane like a gavel. McCready barked orders to his aide. Green drank it in, eyes gleaming. "See, Marlowe, this city doesn't want justice. It wants ownership. And tonight, I sell the truth to the man who can afford it." Jack felt Claire shift beside him, her voice low. "We can't outbid them. We've got to steal it." Jack nodded. His eyes swept the rafters, the crates, the crowd. Options snapped together in his head like rounds chambering. Then the first shot rang out. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Chaos exploded. Caruso's bodyguard fired at Fletcher's man. The judge ducked behind a chair, swearing like a sailor. The alderman bellowed for order. In seconds, the warehouse became a battlefield of flying bullets and overturned tables. Green ducked low, clutching the ledger. Jack lunged through the chaos, Claire at his side. "Green!" Jack roared. Green spun, gun flashing. The bullet splintered wood by Jack's ear. Jack fired back, missed. The crowd scattered, men trampling each other for the doors. Claire grabbed a chair, hurled it into Green's path. He stumbled, ledger slipping from his grasp. Paper spilled, fluttering like dying birds across the floor. Jack dove, snatched one, then another, but Green clawed the ledger back, snarling, "Not yours." Green spat. Jack slammed his fist into Green's bandaged shoulder. Green howled, dropping the book. Claire kicked it under a crate. "Now it's nobody's," Jack said. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Police whistles cut through the night. Sirens wailed closer. The surviving bidders scattered into the alleys, some clutching wounds, others swearing vengeance. Green, bleeding, staggered toward the river door. Jack aimed, ready to finish it, but Claire caught his wrist. "Jack, let him go." Jack hesitated, fury in his veins. "He's finished," she insisted. "The cops will scoop him up." Reluctantly, Jack lowered his gun. Green shoved through the door, vanishing into the snowy dark. The police stormed the warehouse. Truncheons raised. They rounded up whoever hadn't fled, dragging them out shouting. Jack and Claire slipped into the shadows, unseen. Blank. Underscore. Blank. Later, back in his office, Jack poured 2 stiff drinks. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from unfinished business. Claire took her glass, watching him. "You're thinking about Green." Jack drained half his whiskey. "He's still out there, and now every crook in this city wants what he's selling." She leaned close. Then we make sure no one gets it. Burn the rest of those ledgers. End it for good. Jack looked at her, long and hard. Finally, he nodded. Tomorrow, we finish this. But deep inside, he knew Green wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Chicago woke under a leaden sky. The kind that pressed down on the rooftops and made the streets feel like a tunnel with no way out. Jack Marlowe stood at his window. Cigarette smoke curling against the frost-smeared glass. Watching the city grind through another winter morning. Claire was at his desk, sorting through the scattered papers they had saved from Green's auction. Most were useless scraps, shipping manifests. Half-finished notes, but a few pages had weight. Names, numbers, dates, all tied to the Holloway Syndicate. Claire tapped a finger on one line. Here, shipment 14B. February, Union Stockyards, paid in full. And look at the initials, HG. Jack's jaw tightened. Harold Green. She leaned back. He wasn't just an opportunist who stumbled across Edward's work. He was part of it. Maybe even the one feeding Edward information in the first place. Jack stubbed out his cigarette, anger flaring hot, and when Edward dug too deep, Green turned on him. Classic. Claire's voice softened. If we can prove that, Edward's name is cleared. For good. Jack said nothing. He knew proof didn't just clear names. Proof could kill. If you showed it to the wrong people. Blank. Blank. That night, they visited the stockyards. The place reeked of blood and steam. A labyrinth of pens and slaughterhouses. Even half empty in winter. It groaned with life, cattle bawling. Workers shouting. Engines chugging. Shadows moved where they shouldn't. Men smoking in corners. Eyes too sharp for laborers. Jack led Claire down a side passage. Past a locked gate. Into a storage building stacked with crates. On one crate, painted in faded red, 14B. Jack pried it open with his knife. Inside were ledgers wrapped in oilcloth. Neat and dry. Pages upon pages of transactions, bribes, shipments, payments to politicians and cops. The entire Holloway empire. Itemized. Claire's hands trembled as she flipped through. This is it. This is the whole story. Jack nodded grimly. Which means Green's coming for it. Blank. They didn't wait long. The door creaked. Footsteps echoed. Green stepped inside, flanked by two armed men. His coat was torn, his bandages soaked, but his smile was sharp as glass. Evening, Marlowe, he said, and Miss Whitaker. I knew you'd sniff this place out. Like moths to a flame. Jack raised his gun. Drop it, Green. Green chuckled, spreading his hands, still playing the hero. You don't get it, do you? This city doesn't want heroes. It wants caretakers of secrets. That's what I am. That's why I'll win. His men fanned out, revolvers drawn. Claire clutched the ledger tight to her chest. You killed Edward, she said, her voice steady. You pretended to help him. Then you buried him. Green's eyes gleamed. Edward was soft. He wanted the truth. I wanted survival. There's a difference. Jack's trigger finger twitched. Big difference. Blank. The standoff cracked when one of Green's men lunged. Jack fired, the blast echoing off steel beams. The thug crumpled, screaming. The second fired back. Splinters ripped past Claire's head. She dove behind the crate. Jack rolled, gun barking twice. The man went down hard. Green didn't flinch. He just smiled and slipped into the maze of crates. His footsteps echoed, taunting. Catch me if you can. Detective. Jack sprinted after him, weaving between shadows, heart pounding. Claire shouted his name, but the chase swallowed her voice. Blank. The stockyards became a nightmare of steam and noise. Pipes hissed, hooves thundered, knives flashed under bare bulbs as workers butchered carcasses. Jack shoved past them, eyes locked on Green's coat as it darted through the chaos. Green ducked into a slaughterhouse, the floor slick with blood. Jack followed, revolver raised. The room was empty except for hanging carcasses swaying from hooks. Shadows twisted in the steam. Then Green's voice. You can't kill me. Marlowe, kill me, and the city crowns another. Let me live, and maybe, just maybe, you learn how to survive here. Jack steadied his gun, scanning the rows. I'm not interested in surviving. I'm interested in finishing. A hook swung. A shadow moved. Jack fired, missed. Green sprang from the dark, slamming into him. The gun clattered across the wet floor. They grappled, fists thudding, slipping in blood. Green clawed at Jack's throat. Snarling like an animal, Jack drove a knee into his ribs. Head butted him, sent him staggering into a carcass. But Green didn't fall. He grabbed a butcher's knife from a rack. Blade glinting, Jack squared his stance. Fists up. Come on. Then, blank. Underscore, blank. The fight was brutal. Knife slashing, fists cracking, both men slipping, slamming into meat hooks. Jack caught a slice along his arm, hot pain flared. He countered with a right cross that rattled Green's jaw. Green lunged again, knife aimed at Jack's chest. Jack caught his wrist, twisted, the blade skidding inches from his side. They strained, locked in a death struggle. Then Claire's voice cut through the din. Jack. Green glanced, just for a second. It was enough. Jack wrenched the knife free and drove his fist into Green's face. Green reeled, crashed into a hook. The blade clattered to the floor. Jack leveled it at him, chest heaving. Green's grin was bloody but wide. Do it, kill me, then you'll see, you'll be just like me. Jack's hand shook. For one terrifying heartbeat, he wanted to. Then Claire was there, her hand on his. Don't, Jack, he's not worth it. Jack dropped the knife. It clanged loud in the silence. Blank. Underscore, blank. Police whistles again, closer this time. Someone must have heard the shots. Green, bleeding, saw his chance. He bolted through a side door, vanishing into the steam. By the time Jack staggered outside, the night had swallowed him. Claire touched his arm, voice urgent. We've got the ledgers. That's enough. We don't need him anymore. Jack looked out at the dark streets, fury burning cold in his gut. Yes, we do, he said, because as long as Green's out there, he'll never stop. Blank. Underscore, blank. The next morning, the newspapers blared headlines. Police raid secret auction, several arrested. Notorious figures escape. Rumors of lost Holloway files swirl through City Hall. Jack and Claire sat at the diner downstairs. Coffee gone cold, ledgers stacked between them. Outside, Chicago moved like nothing had changed. But Jack knew better. Something had shifted. Green was wounded, desperate, dangerous. And the ledgers were no longer just evidence, they were a target painted on their backs. Claire said softly, so what now? Jack looked at the ledgers. Then at her. Now we finish what Edward started. We burn down the whole rotten structure. Brick by brick. His voice was steady, but in the back of his mind, he heard Green laughing. The war wasn't over. It was only getting bloodier. The storm hit Chicago the way a fist hits a jaw, sudden. Brutal. No warning. Snow slammed down overnight, turning streets into rivers of slush and burying the L tracks in white. By morning, the city groaned under a blanket of ice. Every sound muffled, every alley deeper in shadow. Jack Marlowe stood in his office, a kerosene heater hissing at his feet, staring at the ledgers spread across his desk. Claire paced the length of the room, her heels clicking sharp against the worn floorboards. They're not just records, she said, they're a map. Every deal, every payoff, every secret Green ever touched. And if we follow it far enough, it doesn't stop with the Halloways. It stretches into City Hall, the courts, the police. Jack lit a cigarette, smoke curling slow. Yeah, which means the second we move on this, every son of a bitch with something to lose is going to come knocking. Claire stopped pacing, met his eyes, then let them knock. Edward didn't die for us to sit on our hands. Jack exhaled smoke through his teeth. She was right, but that didn't make the next step any less dangerous. Blank. Underscore, blank. By noon, the danger came calling. A knock at the door, 3 sharp raps. Jack's hand went to his revolver. He motioned for Claire to stay back, then opened it a crack. A boy stood in the hall. No more than 12, cap pulled low, cheeks raw from the cold. He held an envelope. Mr. Marlowe? Jack took it, flipped the kid a coin. The boy bolted without a word. Inside the envelope was a single photograph. Black and white, grainy, taken from a distance. It showed Jack and Claire leaving the stockyards the night before. And scrawled across the bottom, in red pencil, "We see you." Claire's face went pale. Green. Jack crushed the photo in his fist. He's tightening the noose. Blank. Underscore, blank. That night, the city roared with violence. Shots in the alleys, fires in the stockyards, police cars racing nowhere, sirens screaming. Word on the street said Green had declared open war, sending his men to shake down judges, torch warehouses, Squeeze every politician and crook into paying him tribute. It wasn't just about the ledgers anymore. It was about control. Green wanted to be king. Jack and Claire needed allies. But allies were scarce. The cops were half-bought. City Hall was compromised, and the mob had more knives than friends. Still, Jack knew one man who hadn't yet sold his soul. Detective Lou Salerno. Blank. Underscore, blank. They met him at a tavern on the south side. Smoke thick enough to chew. Salerno was big, with a boxer's nose and eyes that hadn't seen sleep in days. "You're playing with fire, Marlowe," Salerno growled after hearing the pitch. "Green's got half the city on his payroll. The other half's too scared to stand against him." Jack leaned in. "But you're not," Salerno snorted into his whiskey. "Don't make me out to be some knight in shining armor. I just hate bullies. Always have." He eyed the ledgers Jack slid across the table. "This is dynamite. Drop it in the wrong place. It blows us all sky high." Claire's voice was steady. "Then we drop it in the right place. The press. If the public sees this, no politician can bury it." Salerno rubbed his jaw. "Maybe, but Green won't wait for the ink to dry. He'll come after you before the morning edition hits the street." Jack lit another cigarette. "Then we make sure he doesn't get the chance." Blank. Underscore, blank. The plan was simple, but deadly. They'd hand the ledgers to a reporter at the Tribune. A man Salerno trusted. Get the story into print before Green could silence it. But Green was already moving. The first attempt came as they left the tavern. A black sedan slid around the corner. Lights off. Engine growling. The window dropped. Muzzle flash lit the snow. Jack shoved Claire down. Returned fire. Bullets cracked against brick. Glass shattered. The sedan fishtail-ed sped off into the night. Salerno hauled them up. "That's just the start. He knows what you're carrying." Jack spat blood where a flying brick had nicked his lip. "Good. Let him know. Means he's scared." Blank. Underscore, blank. The second attempt came hours later. Jack and Claire had holed up in a safe house above a laundry on Taylor Street. Ledgers locked in a steel trunk. Near midnight, footsteps creaked on the stairs. A shadow slipped under the door. Jack fired through the wood. A scream answered. The door burst inward. Two men with Tommy guns sprayed the room. Splinters flew. Claire dove for cover. Salerno pulled his own .38 and dropped one shooter. Jack tackled the other. Slammed his head into the floor until he stopped moving. Breath ragged. Jack wiped blood from his knuckles. Green's not sending warnings anymore. He's sending soldiers. Salerno kicked the gunmen's bodies. "Then we'd better move fast. He won't stop till you're in the ground." Blank. Underscore, blank. By dawn, the city was on edge. Green's war left bodies in alleys. Smoke over rooftops. Newspapers hinted at upheaval but didn't dare name him. Politicians called for calm while secretly counting their cut. Jack, Claire, and Salerno drove north through the snow-choked streets. Ledgers in the trunk, heading for the Tribune building. The river steamed with ice. Bridges groaned under traffic. Every corner looked like an ambush waiting to spring. As they crossed Michigan Avenue, Salerno's jaw clenched. "We're being tailed." Jack glanced in the mirror. A Packard, dark and low, hugging their bumper. Another appeared behind it. Claire's hand found his arm. "Jack." He slammed the gas. Tires shrieked. The chase was on. Blank. Underscore, blank. They tore through the loop. Horns blaring. Pedestrians scattering. The Packard stuck tight. Guns flashing from the windows. Bullets smashed the rear glass. Shredded the seats. Jack jerked the wheel. Swerved into an alley. Skidding on ice. Trash cans exploded. Cats screamed. The Packards followed. Engines snarling. Salerno leaned out, firing back. One car clipped a wall. Sparks flying, but the other pressed close. Closer. Jack saw the river ahead. Bridge rising for a freighter. No time to stop. He floored it. "Jack!" Claire shouted. The sedan shot up the incline. Over the gap. For one heartbeat they were flying. City lights below like broken stars. Then the tires slammed down on the far side. Axle screaming. Behind them, one Packard plunged into the river with a splash that shook the bridge. The other skidded sideways. Crashed into a lamppost. Jack didn't slow. He drove until the Tribune Tower loomed above them. Stone and steel cutting into the gray sky. Blank. Underscore, blank. Inside, the newsroom buzzed with typewriters. Editors shouting over the din. Salerno led them to a corner office where a thin man with wire glasses waited. "This is Warren," Salerno said. "He's clean, trustworthy." "Barely." Warren took one look at the ledgers and went pale. This is the story of the decade. You're handing me the keys to burn this city down. Then strike the match," Jack said, but even as Warren pulled the pages close, a voice rasped from the doorway. "Strike it, and you'll never live to see it burn." Green stood there, coat torn, face bruised, eyes alight with fury, a gun in each hand. Blank, underscore, blank. The newsroom froze. Typewriters went silent. Reporters ducked behind desks. Green stepped inside, guns trained on Jack and Claire. "You think you can outplay me?" he hissed. "I built this city's lies. I own its secrets. You can't take that away with a headline." Jack moved slow, hand near his revolver. "Funny thing about lies, Green, they rot from the inside. All it takes is one crack, and the whole wall comes down." Green sneered. "Then I'll make sure there's no one left to crack it." He raised his guns, and the room exploded in gunfire. Gunfire tore the Tribune newsroom apart. Paper flew like shrapnel. Typewriters toppled. Glass burst into shards. Reporters screamed and scattered as Green fired both pistols, muzzle flashes strobing the chaos. Jack shoved Claire down behind an overturned desk, bullets chewing through wood inches from their heads. Salerno returned fire, his .38 cracking steady, forcing Green to duck. "Stay down," Jack barked, rolling to the side, revolver in hand. He popped up, squeezed off 2 shots. One grazed Green's arm, spinning him back against a filing cabinet. Green snarled, blood staining his sleeve. "You think you can wound me and walk out? I'll bury you with every other bastard who's crossed me." Claire's eyes burned through the haze of smoke and dust. She clutched Jack's coat. "Don't let him walk out of here." "Jack, not after Edward, not after all of this." Jack nodded once. "No more running. Blank, underscore, blank." The firefight raged. Desks splintered. Type bars flew like metal teeth. Green fought like a cornered wolf. Relentless, his shots precise. He clipped Salerno in the shoulder, sending the detective crashing back with a grunt of pain. Jack slid low across the floor, heart hammering, and came up behind a steel column. From there, he had a clean angle. He waited, timing Green's reload. Click, Jack fired. The bullet slammed into Green's pistol, knocking it from his hand. It skittered across the floor, disappearing under a desk. Green roared and charged, swinging the other pistol like a club. He crashed into Jack, the 2 men grappling, fists flying, smashing into desks and scattering pages of damning evidence. Jack's ribs screamed under Green's weight. The man fought with desperation, every punch fueled by years of corruption, greed, and the fear of losing it all. But Jack fought with something stronger: justice and rage. For Edward, for Claire, for every victim buried under Green's lies. Blank, underscore, blank. With a guttural yell, Jack drove his fist into Green's jaw. Then again, until teeth broke and blood sprayed. Green reeled but came back swinging, fingers clawing for Jack's throat. Claire snatched up a fallen typewriter, hefted it high, and smashed it across Green's back. The machine shattered. Green howled, staggered, giving Jack the opening he needed. He ripped Green's pistol from his grip and leveled it at his chest. The newsroom fell silent, only the wheeze of broken breath, the drip of blood on tile. Reporters peeked from behind desks, eyes wide. Green spat crimson, lips curling into a sneer. "Go on, Marlowe. Pull the trigger. Prove you're no better than me." Jack's finger tightened. For a moment, he wanted nothing more than to end it there, to erase Green with one squeeze. But Claire's hand touched his wrist, steadying. Her voice was low, calm. "Don't. Killing him would bury the truth with him. Let the world see what he is." Jack lowered the gun. Salerno, pale and bleeding but still standing, staggered forward, cuffs in hand. "Harold Green, you're under arrest for murder, fraud, extortion, and being the rottenest son of a bitch this city's ever seen." The click of steel on wrists echoed louder than gunfire. Blank, underscore, blank. Hours later, the presses thundered. The Tribune hit the streets before dawn. Headlines screaming across the front page. Green exposed, corruption, fraud, murder ties to city elite. Bundles of newspapers hit sidewalks. Newsboys shouting in the snow-choked streets. Chicago woke to its own reflection in black ink, crooked deals, forged legacies, and the man who thought he could own it all. Green sat in a cell, stripped of power, awaiting trial. His name was Mud, his empire crumbling, his allies scattering like rats from a sinking ship. The ledgers had done their job. The city could never look away again. Blank, underscore, blank. For Jack and Claire, the fight left scars deeper than bruises. They walked along the frozen river that morning, the city gray and silent around them. Jack's knuckles were swollen, ribs aching. Claire's coat was torn, hair loose, but her chin was high. "You did it," she said softly. Jack shook his head. "We did it, Salerno. The kid who brought that envelope." Every poor bastard. Green leaned on. "We just lit the match." Claire slipped her arm through his. "Sometimes that's all it takes. One match. And the dark can't hide anymore." They stood a long time, watching the ice drift past. The city moaned in the distance, sirens, horns, the clatter of a place always teetering between shadow and light. Jack lit a cigarette, smoke curling into the cold. "Think Green's the last?" Claire smiled faintly. "In Chicago? He's just another name on a long list. But tonight, people know the truth. That counts for something." Jack exhaled, watching the smoke vanish into the wind. "Yeah, it does. Blank, underscore, blank." Later, in their office above the diner, they found a single envelope slid under the door. No return address. Inside, a torn scrap of paper, typed on an old machine. "Every empire falls, but some fall harder than others. Keep digging, Marlowe. The city isn't done with you yet." Claire looked at Jack, eyes sharp. "What do you think it means?" Jack crushed the note in his fist. "It means there's always another shadow waiting. But when it comes, we'll be ready." He kissed her forehead, turned off the light, and for the first time in weeks, let the dark come without fear. Blank, underscore, blank. Epilogue. Green's trial dominated headlines for months. Witnesses lined up, ledgers stacked high on courtroom tables. The jury found him guilty on all counts. He would rot in Joliet, a king without a throne. Dr. Crane recovered, publishing a book on the tangled legacy of the Halloways. A history no longer hidden in vaults or behind forged papers. Richard Halloway retreated into silence, his empire tarnished but intact. His wealth couldn't wash the stain of truth. Salerno took a desk job, scars on his shoulder a reminder that justice in Chicago never came cheap. As for Jack and Claire, they stayed in the game. The city needed eyes that wouldn't close, fists that wouldn't flinch. Every whistle of a train at Union Station, every shadow under a street lamp, was another case waiting. Because in Chicago, the snow always melted, and when it did, the dirt beneath was always darker than before. Blank, underscore, blank. The end.